Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. On behalf of World's Lawyer Forum, I warmly welcome you all to today's webinar on artificial intelligence and the law. As artificial intelligence continue to reshape industries, it also raises a critical legal and ethical question around accountability, governance, and risk management. Today's session will help us better understand how organizations can navigate these challenges effectively. Before we begin, a quick note to everyone. Please feel free to drop your questions in the chat box. We will address them during question and answer session. Now, let's move to introduce our speaker, Mr. Kaustav Ghosh. Kaustav brings over 30 years of experience across media and technology with a distinguished career as both a senior executive and entrepreneur. He is the CEO of Advanced Technology Management Consulting Pte. Limited, where he focuses on building a real-time decisioning system that help enterprises, financial institutions, and educators navigate uncertainty and make smarter, data-driven decisions. In addition, he also teaches management of technology at a graduate level and is a co-author of books and publication that aims to make AI more accessible to professional and student. On behalf of World's Lawyer Forum and the audience, we are truly honored to have him with us today. So without any further delay, I would like to invite Mr. Kaustav Ghosh to share his insight on this highly relevant and evolving topic. Over to you, Kaustav.
Thank you very much. First of all, a sound check. Can everybody hear me loud and clear?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, very good. I also need the screen sharing, please.
All right. Please check now.
Not yet. Okay, I think it should be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just check. Just give me a second. Yeah, hopefully it is okay. I mean, it's okay. I'm just running through my. Just bear with me for a minute. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, it's visible now.
Okay, very good. Well, first of all, good evening. Some of you are up early in the morning, so good morning to you. Bonjour, Morgan, if you are in Germany, and Assalamu alaikum if you are in the Middle East or North Africa. It's a real delight to be here and to speak with everybody about something which is very pertinent and which is going to assume a lot of importance in the days ahead. So I'm going to talk about AI in the context of the law. I'm not a lawyer, although I have studied law at undergraduate and graduate levels. All of you here are, of course, associated with the law industry or the law profession in various degrees, directly or indirectly. So you know the law better than me. But what I'm going to talk about today is the impact of law on liabilities, on compliance, ethics, and risks, and how we can probably find a way around this constant puzzle of whether AI is something that can be used fruitfully by the legal profession without sacrificing its essential requirements and responsibilities. So let me just go through the slides now. If you can see slide number 2, the legal profession faces a consequential transformation. On the left-hand side, we are talking about the mechanism of the legal profession. And on the right-hand side, we have the burden of the legal profession. Is the screen clear enough? Can everybody see the writing here?
Yes, right. It's really pretty clear.
Okay. All right. Very good. Now, what is AI? AI basically is the science and technology which enables computers to mimic human problem solving, perception, learning, and reasoning. That is, in principle. In reality, the AI that you and I use has got a lot of limitations, but to a large extent, it is able to go further than most machines used to previously. The promise for the legal profession, and indeed many other professions, is that it can reduce the physical burden of legal work and extract rapid insights from massive data sets within prescribed time frames. All of you deal with a lot of data. That is the burden of the legal profession, and with a lot of complexity. And all your cases and issues have to be resolved or presented or argued within a very limited period of time. And that is where AI seeks to come in and provide you an alternative of efficiency, reducing the burden of physical work, and even providing you insights. But then there is a burden of AI. There is a load of AI which is real. And on the right-hand side, the reality is that using AI means that you have to manage non-negotiable responsibilities to clients, stakeholders, the legal system, and society. But is AI ready for it? That is the question. There have been some important precedents of systemic failure in off-the-shelf AI deployment. If you can see the table that I have got here, the most famous case so far has been Mata versus Avianca. In that case, a person who sued Avianca, the Colombian carrier, in the courts of New York, landed up with a lawyer who generated 6 non-existent cases with fake quotes via ChatGPT. It seems it went further because apparently the cases which were quoted were cases which were judged by judges who did not exist, who referred back to cases which did not exist. The lawyer was honest enough to admit unfamiliarity with the tool's mechanics, and he said that he had made a mistake, but he had also tried to do the right thing. The case was thrown out, the plaintiff was fined. Fortunately, he wasn't fined a lot of money, but he lost his case, and it led to an important ruling, which I'll come to later. Sullivan versus Cromwell. In this case, there were numerous inaccurate citations and misquotations of the law. And internal review processes within the law firm failed to identify AI-generated errors. At any rate, that seemed to have been the reason given. That resulted in reputational damage to the law firm. It required remedial measures. The law firm itself had to go hat in hand and talk about how bad it was and how mistaken it was, etc., etc. That's really not a great place to be in, as you can all imagine. The United States versus Hepner, where the client of a law firm was subjected to a raid by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and they seized certain documents from his residence. Now, what were those documents? Those documents were transcripts of conversations that the client was having with Claude, the LLM. Just like you and me can ask Claude a question, get an answer, and ask again, and so on and so forth. So he had kept printouts, transcripts of his conversation with Claude. And those were seized by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Naturally enough, I would say that the person concerned was, very upset, and he said when he went to court that, look, this is breaching, the seizure of documents is breaching attorney-client privileges. The answer given to him by the judge was that AI exchanges are not protected by attorney-client privilege. This is a very important ruling. And then you had a British case, which was 𝐼𝐭𝐴 versus 𝐻𝐿. In that case, 5 fictitious cases and 1 irrelevant case, which was not fictitious but not relevant, were cited in judicial review pleadings. This had to do with a person who had wanted to get emergency shelter in a particular municipality, and it was denied, and he went to court for that. Now, this was a little more complex, so if you read, and I'll be happy to share more material with you after this conversation, It's very interesting because there was a pro bono firm involved, and they involved a junior barrister, etc., etc. The veracity of the AI output was not checked before inclusion. That is the important thing. So in each case, you see there is a problem of unfamiliarity with how AI works, with how AI functions, what kind of responses it gives. But above all, are you able to catch a problem in terms of its response? In this case, too, wasted costs had to be paid to counsel. More damagingly, the barrister and other people in question were referred to regulatory bodies in the United Kingdom, which, as all of you know, who are legal professions, is not a great place to be in. So I'm going to pause here for a moment and ask if there are any questions. Otherwise, I will proceed. No questions. I hope all of you can hear me. Yes, ma'am.
We haven't received any question. You can continue.
Okay. Please let me know if you cannot hear me clearly, or if I go too fast. I'll be happy to slow down and speak more clearly if needed.
Sure.
So we come to something where the judge, Kevin Castell, in the case of Mata versus Avianca, I'm going back. You can see Mata versus Avianca. Some of you who are in trade law or disputes to do with aviation and transport and consumer rights would be familiar with it. He said that the lawyers had abandoned their responsibilities with fake quotes and citations, and this was an action in bad faith. This is a very important ruling by the judge when he passed judgment on the eventual case. And he pointed out that they had not only, he didn't have a problem, by the way, of using ChatGPT. He was okay with it. His problem was that fake quotes and citations had been used, which had been created by ChatGPT. And then the lawyers had continued to stand by fake opinions after judicial orders had called into question the existence of these cases and these opinions. That was the problem. So you see, there are two issues here. One issue is that there is a technology which everybody rightfully wants to use. That is fine. The outcome of using the technology is something which is severely damaging for everybody concerned within that case, on both sides, as well as the legal system. So is the technology itself to blame? That is a gray area. The technology was not specifically set up for the purposes of the legal community. It is used and has been used by the legal community and in the matter of cases. But the use of the technology has come with certain risks which had been overlooked or not seen, or people were not familiar with it, etc., etc. And that resulted in a judgment of bad faith and abandoning of responsibilities. These are very damaging statements for any legal practitioner, as you would know. And it erodes confidence in the judicial system and in the legal profession for people when they come to know that ChatGPT, etc., is being used. But does it have to be like that? That is the question. What should be done? So as you can see here, the legal profession is on the horns of a legal dilemma. That's what I call it. On the left-hand side is the AI engine, which is driven by convenience and speed. It's optimized for pattern matching. It is dependent on probabilistic livelihood. It is not deterministic, which means that if you expect it to tell you that the sun rises in the east, it will not tell you because it knows that to be an absolute truth. It will tell you that the sun rises in the east because the probability of the sun rising in the east is more likely than any other occurrence. And the statement that the sun will rise in the east is likely to give it a greater reward than any other comparable option. You need to understand this very clearly. And yet, on the right-hand side is the legal profession and its standards. It requires absolute factual certainty. It requires strict ethical compliance. And there is a lot of consequence with regard to the presentation of material. So on one hand, you have got a strictly regulated profession, which requires absolutely well-guarded, well-regarded, well-held standards to be adhered to. And yet, the use of LLMs, to be precise, or generative AI, results in the use of a probabilistic engine, which is designed merely to simulate plausible language. Simulate plausible language. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to pause for a moment and consider this. because this is the key question that my friends who organized this event rightfully came upon. The horns of the legal dilemma, which is that if you have AI which is being used, what does it mean for responsibilities, for liabilities and ethics? This is where we are landing up at. So before we go there, let's first understand the problem at hand. But to understand the problem at hand, let's go into the black box. What is a large language model? I won't take you through AI 101. We are not here for that, but you should understand a minimum of what you are dealing with. So when you use ChatGPT, when you use Claude or Gemini or anything else, Perplexity, etc., you are using a UI or a user interface via your mobile or via your computer into a large language model. A large language model is a probabilistic engine that processes unstructured or semi-structured textual inputs, which are known as prompts. I'm sure all of you or most of you know what a prompt is. You use it for ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude every day, probably every working hour. The engine leverages pre-trained data sets through pattern matching and probability and speed, and generates probabilistic responses across different formats. The output can be text, it can be a picture, it can be videos, it can be graphics. We know we generate all these every day, but these are, ladies and gentlemen, probabilistic responses. The machine itself does not know them to be the absolute truth to your question. And that is the problem that you come up with. LLMs do not know truth. They know the statistical likelihood of how words are sequenced together. That is what you need to understand. But that leads to an illusion of knowledge. Today, at the end of the day, it is trawling huge amounts of databases. And if you ask a question, the chances are it will give you an answer. Why? Because it goes through pre-training, supervised fine-tuning, and then a reward model, and then reinforcement learning. I'm going to share all of these with you through the organizers, so you don't need to take notes right now. But these are very, very interesting because much of this process is human. It involves a lot of algorithms. It requires the building and running of agents. The agent generates a response and it is given a reward to be able to give ideal answers. So it is looking for, number one, the highest probability of what the right arrangement of words should be or tokens should be. And then it wants to give you the answer which is likely to be the most rewarding, which also means the most optimal. So is it the truth? In many cases, it is. In some cases, in many cases, it may or may not be. And then you have the tokenization tear down. What is a token? The basic unit of AI operation. So if I say Mary had a little lamb and type it in, then the ingestion of that whole sentence by AI, by Claude or by Gemini or by ChatGPT will mean a breakdown in tokens. So if we say that the plaintiff argues that the precedent is located in dash, 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 blah, 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 etc., this will all be broken down into tokens. Weights will be given, probabilities will be given in terms of how they're arranged, and there will be the creation of vectors. And then there is a thinking process, which is known as the transformation layer. The transformation layer calculates a probability distribution for the entire vocabulary of the statement. So this is what is happening when you are asking a question or writing something and sending it to an LLM. Please understand this. This is not your old semantic search, which you and I used to do for Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, etc. No, this is pure probability and vector embedding with a reward system which gives you an optimal answer. So the model samples a single token and appends it. The cycle repeats until detokenization generates the final response. The final response in English is what you get back. Is that the right answer? According to the system, according to AI, it is. But it is the right answer not because AI is looking for the truth, and that is where your problem is. Why? Because AI is not searching your database, and your database has not been conformed. It has not been set up it has not been prepared for the purposes of such a search or such a query. And that leads us to hallucinations. So that led to the people in Mata versus Avianca and the other cases having all these problems. So when they were seeing those use cases pop up in response to their prompt queries, and they were very happy because they looked perfectly done, they did not know that the system was hallucinating. Hallucination is nothing other than a false, inaccurate, or misattributed ruling, because the training, which is reinforcement learning training, drives it to provide an ideal or helpful sounding answer, even at the risk of it being factually incorrect. So the threshold question for legal integration is this: do you want to use LLMs for using AI? You should absolutely use AI. You should absolutely automate, but are LLMs the right way to go? And if you use LLMs, I will take a slight pause here. Some of you may have seen a ruling in the Court of Appeals in the state of Oregon in the United States just yesterday. And I'll share it with my friends so that they can pass it on to you. Some of you already know about that case, where the judge in a particular case, where again LLMs were used and created a problem, said that you are not applying your mind as a legal professional, even if you are using LLMs within permission limits. So when you ask a probabilistic machine to deal with factual words, you are always going to face a problem. You must step away from that convenience and build your own models. I'm going to come to the very end. So what should you do? You need an architecture to get around it. First of all, get your data ready. Your data must be ready for analysis. It must be ready for tokenization. It must be ready for vectorization. Then you create an automation framework. Then you create a risk modeling and decisioning product. And then you build your own functional models on top of that. This is your entirely customized framework to harness AI speed while mitigating ethical and liability risks. And this machine has to sit or be available to you in your premises, and the data which is available to that machine must be completely sanitized, and it cannot come from anywhere outside your own secure digital library. That's it. If you want to search for anything online outside, fine, do that, no problem. But if you are going to use this for case law, then please do not use LLMs. Please do not use wrappers which take you back into LLMs, because LLMs will take you back into massive open databases. You need to get your own databases ready. Then you need to create your own automation framework, which allows your paralegals, your senior counsels, your associates, your middle-level managers, all of them, to be in a position where they're not spending an inordinate amount of time doing inefficient work, but they're spending the right amount of time getting the right outcomes. And then you want to know what is the risk of taking a case, what is the risk of executing a particular strategy, what is the risk of using a particular case as evidentiary material. Those are the things where you start to bring in risk modeling and decisioning. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the real power of AI. By just using LLM, you are not getting that power. And then you start building your own functional models on top of that. You can get a contractor to build it. You can have a couple of bright guys from MIT to do it for you. Doesn't matter. The model has to be yours. And finally, you have to have your data strategy. You have to have your automation framework. You have to have your risk modeling. And then you have to have your functional models. I am not going into all of these today because this was a curtain raiser for the main event. And I don't want you to feel that I won't say anything new in the event. So in the event in Singapore at Crown Plaza on the 18th and 19th of May, I'm absolutely going to talk about data strategy, the automation framework, about risk modeling, and functional models. And I'm going to share this deck with you. So the precedent for safe and customized integration is that regulators will support AI, provided the deployment recognizes the technology's specific functional limits. The Solicitors Regulation Authority in the UK approved a legal firm to allow AI-based legal services and debt recovery, which is highly technical, numbers driven, specifically under the condition that the firm should not use AI to refer to case law. You can see the fallout of the cases in the United Kingdom and the United States and elsewhere, even in Australia, which I've referred to earlier. So we are going to talk about all of these. We are going to talk about data strategy, the automation framework, risk modeling and functioning models. So what have I done? I've taken you through the problem. I've taken you through the promise. I have shown you the big picture, but I've also taken you into the back end. I've taken you deep into the trenches to show you how AI really works for you, or one part of AI works for you, the part that you and I are most comfortable with, the most familiar with, which is LLMs, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, etc., etc. But there is much, much more to AI, which can help you automate, which can help you reduce costs, go faster, take decisions, evaluate risks, and build your own models so that you can become a next generation legal firm or legal practice where you are not only able to stay within the ethical guardrails, but you are able to actually check what is going wrong and be a responsible and highly professional provider of legal services. In that, I'm going to do a deep dive into framework construction, risk modeling, and custom AI models in Singapore in May. And I hope some of you, or many of you, if not all, will find time to be there in person. If you aren't, I'm sure we will find a way to reach back to you and talk to you more about what all of this is today. So I'm going to pause here. I think I've almost run out of time, and I'm done with my presentation. First of all, I want to thank the organizers and all of you for being very patient and going through this. And I'll be quite happy to answer any questions right now.
Thank you so much, Kaustubh, for this insightful session. We'll now open the floor for questions. I invite the audience to share their questions in the chat box, or you can also share your view with the Kaustubh. Yes, so Kaustubh, Nada Barrick, she wanted to add that legal professional had competence. So adding to that, legal profession had competence. That's what the comment she have given. And she also thanks to you for the interesting presentation, for the kind of awareness you have done it in the legal practice.
Sure.
The people who have asked for the PowerPoint presentation will request the Kaustubh, if he's fine to share the presentation with us, then we will
Sure, I'm
definitely
okay.
share it
No
with you.
problem.
Yes, we'll
Yeah.
definitely audience share it with you. Else, we are also going to share the recording. Adam, definitely we will share the recording. Legal 220 will definitely share the recording. Now we got the question from Vasundhara Sankaran. Whose responsibility to check and what protocol to be used to check veracity of AI output?
That's a very good question. So there are various ways of checking, and can I ask the lady, Vasundhara, is your firm a very large one with technical personnel, or is it one which is mid-sized and you do not have too many people, maybe except the usual IT people? How big is your
Vasundhara,
firm?
you can unmute yourself and yes, she's there.
Uh, Thank you. Hi, Kaustubh. It was a
Hi.
good presentation.
Thank you.
So my question was not, specific to a firm. Just to answer your question, my firm is a mid-sized firm. So
Okay.
about 250 employees are there. And
Okay.
my question was with regard to the use of AI documents, outputted documents in court proceedings, and the way you had mentioned the
Yes.
outcome of all these slightly unfavorable. On the whole, it was unfavorable to use AI documents where attorneys had used some kind of help from AI like ChatGPT and so on. Now, is there any way to now maybe the but that's not going to be possible to avoid the use of artificial intelligence or any kind of this speeding techniques in our work, because it has a lot of
Yes.
legal work and it's very, very tedious to go through,
Yes.
thousands of documents. So is
That's
there
right.
maybe a protocol needs to be done as to how to verify the authenticity of a document or so on? Maybe that is again something which AI engineers can come up with, or is it already there, or something that needs to be, or is it something that needs to come out still?
Well, first of all, thank you for an excellent question. Actually, you've asked many questions within one question, which is great. The reason why I asked about the size of the firm and the kind of employees you have is it actually comes back to that. The reason is that if you were, let us say, a 2-man or 3-man, very, very small niche firm, then you might find it worth your while to actually do some verifications by, I'll give you simple examples. Let's say, and again, I'm going to err on the side of caution, but we know in reality how we use AI, right? So let us say you had generated something from ChatGPT. So you basically grab it and throw it at Claude, and you ask Claude to run a check on it. That's the simplest way to check something between two. Take something from one LLM and get another LLM, which has a reputation of being slightly more rigorous, to see whether it makes sense. And that is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. At the end of the day, best case is best case, but you have to also work within your limitations and resources. However, when you are coming to a larger firm such as yours, and you have a lot of responsibilities and liabilities hanging over your head, you have to be extremely, extremely careful. And as you rightly said, you also need to, well, let's face it, you have to be automated. You have to use AI. I mean, there's no way around it, right? So what do? You basically build an agentic infrastructure, which is what I refer to as your own model framework. And you give roles to certain agents who have to carry out that work of checking and cross-checking. Those agents cannot be built by using AI, because if you use AI, Vasundhara, what is going to happen is that you will end up using probabilistic engineering to encode your end user protocol, and that is going to be even more dangerous. So you need to have an agentic network. That agentic network is going to be at the core of your, as you said, the protocol I refer to as your model framework. And that will have to be good, old-fashioned, highly competent engineering. The engineers need to be excellent in terms of knowing what AI is about. They need to know what data is all about, more importantly, right? And the quality assurance has to be extremely, extremely high. But while they may take the code through its paces in terms of testing it out on various platforms or using various tools, I would be absolutely against anybody coming and saying, hey, I'm using Claude Code, etc., and I've created this cool little protocol. Sure, by all means, if you're doing a little bit of a prototype to show somebody, that's fine. Please do not deploy it in your environment, especially if you're a legal firm. Never, ever. So build to check, but build using old-fashioned technology to create a highly sophisticated agentic framework, which is your model. Within that, embedded will have to be risk. There has to be decisioning. There has to be scenario building. Then you decide, how deep you want to go, or whether you are just saying, hey, it's like Turnitin in case of plagiarism, if you have used it, or one of Grammarly, am I just checking for certain words and so on and so forth? But the chances are in your case you aren't, because there is a lot of context, intertwined data, complexity, cross references, etc., etc. Very, very sophisticated requirements here. Can be done, absolutely can be done. I don't know if Harvey and Clio and others are doing it. They're off the shelf. But keep in mind this, and this is what I always recommend against. Any product today that is off the shelf, even if they say it is not a wrapper, is likely to be sending your confidential data somewhere else.
Right.
What you need to do is to have a platform which is sitting inside. It has to work inside. I wouldn't be so insistent if you were in some other, profession, right? But when it comes to legal, when it comes to banking, same thing. We tell our banking customers and prospects, please be very careful of what you allow to go out, because the moment you're using AI, your data is also going out. That is the problem. And you don't know where it is going out. So in your case, and in the case of all legal firms, two things. Number one, build your framework internally, deploy it internally, keep your data inside. It is better when you are a slightly bigger firm, 250 people more. Yeah, wow. I mean, that's fine. It makes sense from a per capita point of view. Takes care of a lot of your problems. But be very, very careful about privacy and data sovereignty.
Thank you. Maybe we'll have to go back to good old engineering to, maybe overcome this. I don't know how is that going to happen.
You can do, I mean, you can get it engineered. I mean, that's part of what my firm does, for example. I mean, these are the problems that we see people coming upon. And the reason why we look at these is exactly what you just said, that when we started working on AI, like everybody else, I'll share a very personal story. We thought everything could be done in a GIF. And then over a period of time, I started analyzing this very, very thoroughly, because I've got 3 decades of experience in this, although I'm not an engineer. So I've got an outside-in view. And I thought, gosh, this is the problem with this. We are, number one, sending the data out. Number two, the code that is being generated by AI tools are themselves the result of probabilistic processes. How about that? Go back to engineering. So there is no escape from high-quality engineering, but you don't need to burn your hole in your pocket for that. It will come down to your technology strategy, how good that is. If for your company, this is very important because it makes a real impact, it is worth thinking through all of these things rather than taking shortcuts.
Yeah, thank you. But just to add one more thing,
yes,
one last point was that I believe people would be aware of Mythos, which is being again
yes.
from Anthropic. So again, it is apparently a next generation kind of an agent, or actually an assistant, an agent, not an AI assistant. So yeah, we need to see whether that sort of is helping in this, because it is supposed to pinpoint the flaws in the already existing, programs.
You brought up something on which we can spend hours, and I'm glad that you brought it up. So Mythos has got this problem, and that is ringing alarm bells. In fact, the Reserve Bank of India, I think, held a meeting with all the banks, right, very recently. And believe me, people are going absolutely scared about this thing. Why? Because if they are building it, if Claude is building it, they're not the only people building it. And the guy who can uncover your vulnerabilities is also the guy who can take advantage of your vulnerabilities. Please understand that these agents are not tethered to your internal environment. They are outside. You're renting those agents. You have got no control over them. For example, if you hire a security guard or an investigator, the laws of the land help you hold them to account. Here you are employing a detective who you have never seen, who's going deep into your system, and you have no way to hold him liable for his actions.
I guess the jurisprudence is just coming up. It is just forming, and it is not really set in stone.
Exactly. Yes, ma'am, please.
Can we take next question?
Yes, please.
Yes. So, Nada, you can unmute yourself as you want to add something, and then we'll move to next one question shared by Suturita.
Yes. Hello. So
Hi.
Just to add something first, thank you so much, because this topic is very, very important, especially I'm teaching law, and I could notice every day what we're going through and what kind of major risk we're going through. So from my point of view, as if the slides that you presented, Doctor, it's very interesting, the horns of the legal dilemma. We have unbalance today between what the curriculum of legal education and what between the curriculum and the market needs. So my suggestion, till we finish this, we start with the regulation, we have new curriculum, we should govern ourselves, or the firms should have a kind of governance for the AI use. because we have the protection of information, we have the protection of financial reports. So,
Yes.
and we're going through the revolution. We're in the revolution of the AI. So what I suggest during this time, so every firm should start by governing the use of AI, because we lost everything related to law, like the protection of information, protection of, really, this is very risky, and we couldn't notice still because we're going through it. So this is number one. Number two, the time that the curriculum of legal education will start introducing the AI ethics, technological tools used, it should be in the curriculum. So the coming future generation will solve their problem. But now we're actually in the problem. So this is my only suggestion in governing our work.
Very, very interesting. And do you teach graduate class? At what level do you teach?
Postgraduate, master degree, and really I'm keep on talking on how to use AI. I told them the AI in the law, like the calculator, it will help you to, for example, for the reading, but instead of the reading, go and let us explore together the critical thinking. He could help you, for example, but you should replace the time consumed that not used, and the AI was supported you, and let us go to critical thinking. And I think, because I have a firm it's time to, instead of keep on reading the books and reading and spend time, let's the AI, for example, use help us on this, but let us explore the critical thinking.
Yes.
So let us reach a better society, for example, in the contract. Let us put more time to explore all the risks that could be generated from the contract, and have a contract to be executed, not a contract to be in the court with problems and solving problems. So we have a lot, we have, for the time being, till the regulator acts and till the Minister of Education and it need at least 5 years if they start today. So I think on as the organizer of this, for example, of this event, which is very important, we'll start by awareness. We'll start by the institution, the educational institution. We'll start not just going and put the paper and see if there is plagiarism or no. No, we have to inform people how to use this AI. So this is very important. Just to add it.
Yeah, thanks very much for your comment.
Thank you. Can we move to next question?
Yes, please do.
The next question is by Suchorita. Our legal promotes the property of the firm who licensed the AI or the user who created it. If you're there, then you can unmute yourself and have a discussion with Kaustav.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for a great session. And my was simply that are the legal prompts that we use on AI tools property of the firm who licenses the AI or the user, or which is basically the lawyer who creates it and is asking a query? Because that's is going to be a huge issue later on when lawyers move out with the prompts and create created elsewhere.
Obviously I'm not a lawyer, but I have the little that I have seen in evidence available to me hasn't told me yet that it's been presented as a matter of dispute in courts. But as you rightly said, I think it will soon be, and then courts in various jurisdictions will come up with their own laws. Which way it will swing? I mean, the whole problem there is, people are basically typing out in what we call as natural language, unstructured conversation. So if you are going to copyright a particular prompt, there must be certain boxes around it so that it doesn't prevent the natural use of language and prevent natural justice or create a hindrance to it. But I suspect that there will be reasons to say that certain kinds of prompts which contain unusual words or copyrighted or patented words or processes being mentioned could result in something. More of marketing. I mean, if you think about some of the words which may have been patent copyrighted, like "Ye Dil Mange More" for Pepsi, or in Amul's "Utterly Butterly Delicious," or the various slogans, it's coming very close to that almost, right? Where a legal firm says, "These are my signature prompts. I want to keep secure them." In that case, the role of the firm, its ownership, on whose behalf, or is it entirely its own? I think all of these issues will come in. I'm not sure whether I answered it very well, but I hope I was able to add something to it.
𝐼𝐴 thank you so much.
Sure.
All right, we have one last question,
Yes,
but
ma'am.
I cannot see him online. It's Bander. Do I need a promote engineer person to make my AI program functional to my bylaws and regulation?
No, see, this is where the problem is coming, right? The problem, and I don't know if Bandar is here, but anyway, let me answer this quickly so that we aren't out of time. So that's what people have been doing. They've been using prompt engineers. They've been using prompt experts, quote unquote, to write prompts. That is not what you do. You basically build stuff from the ground up. In fact, our colleague who just now, Sucharita, if I'm not mistaken, mentioned this whole thing about prompts being copyrighted or secured by firms. I think that's a very important point to keep in mind. And likewise, the lady earlier who had spoken about education and critical thinking. See, the biggest problem is that you are going to have this whole thing which is going to run on autopilot with some supervision. So again and again, number one, the biggest thing to do is, number one, keep your data inside, make your data fit for purpose, secure your data, privatize your data, keep it private and sovereign, and then create a framework and applications which are sitting purely 100% inside your data, inside your firm. You will need to go and search
أنا في
outside.
مجموعة
No doubt.
اجتماعات، واحد المسرح أسوي ويا أمير، واحد لازم ويا منار.
Did somebody have a question?
No, you can continue. I think.
Oh,
Yes,
I'm sorry.
I have raised my question, raised my hand.
Sure.
If there
Yes,
is
ma'am.
time,
Okay.
I can
Yes,
ask a
Dr.
question.
Shetty.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Yeah, so Kaushab, is there any system, mechanism, or maybe AI app or whatever is available to actually verify the veracity of the citations that we receive from these AI tools like ChatGPT and all?
There must be, I don't know, in your legal profession, there must be older software which is available for checking veracity. But I wouldn't use anything which is 100% AI, because again, it's just going to go back to the outside environment, do a pattern matching and come back with an answer. The best way to do that, frankly, if you don't have any option, is to just check for it on Google, that is on Google search, right? So that will give you a straightforward answer. It will take you into archives, links, and so on and so forth. But I wouldn't say that go for an AI answer to an AI problem. The problem that you are mentioning is a very critical problem. The best way to do that is to create your own agent. That agent is AI in nature, in the sense that it is artificial intelligence, but you code it to carry out work in a certain way within a very circumscribed boundary, limited area of work of evidentiary data. It cannot go outside that. The moment you're using any third-party tool, then in most cases, barring maybe a few exceptions, I don't know, but mostly they will take you outside. Your data, your query will go outside. Your responses, which come back to you, may also be shared by other people. Please keep that in mind. It will go into the library, which they further process.
Yeah, so there is a follow-up question from what you have said. You said that we can go on Google and check the veracity and all. But the problem here is that nowadays, even the Google uses AI. So whenever you put a query into the Google, it also gives you AI-generated responses. So my question is now this, that whether the Google is as dependable as it was prior to 2022 or the eruption of the AI tools?
Yes. So let me answer the question. So These are very good questions because they often bring up a lot of issues to the fore, which otherwise wouldn't even in a class. So let me answer your question in two ways. Number one, when you are searching on Google, you will get an answer. So let us say you want to know the veracity of case ABCD, right?
Citation.
The citation, sorry, yeah.
Yep.
So you want to know the veracity of the citation. So Google will take you to the source. It will. And when you look through the source, then you can check and find out, am I looking at the right sources or are these made up? An experienced lawyer like you or some of your more experienced associates will come upon that very, very quickly. They will know. This is where the human talent comes in, right? Machines can't replicate it. But, let me be very, very, very cautious in saying that you are also right in saying that Google itself is today embedded with AI. And what if it throws to me a perfectly manicured, perfectly legitimate looking data source, which is not really the data source? The only way to check that today without creating a monster of forensics analysis at your end is you need a very experienced person to scan through it. There is no other way right now. But yes, to answer your question briefly, Google will still give you the right answer. You need to have an additional layer of check. But I have generally seen that it is okay. When you go to Google search, you generally get the right answer. What you need to do is you need to go 1 or 2 steps down, deeper into the source that Google is sending to you. You don't. So if it gives you a document, for example, or a reference to a library, which is online, you go into that. And then you check, is that real? You will know, right, from your experience. Does this look okay? Sometimes, just like forged things, right, or scams, you will see that in case of hallucination of using LLMs in generative AI. These are not 100% perfect. They leave traces which very, very experienced people can make out. Sometimes there's spelling mistakes, grammatical mistakes, odd words, words which are repeated, which don't make sense. But it requires that experience and patience and that keenness of eye to look out for it.
There's one more small question.
Yes,
if we open Google, let's say, then we go to the incognito window, and then we use any AI tool, let's say ChatGPT or Gemini or Perplexity or anything.
Don't go there. Don't go there.
Okay, and we put a question there. Then does it also have the risk
don't
of
go there
getting...
at all. No, don't go there at all. So I use Google, right? I use Google extensively. I use the old use the old Google search engine only. I don't let Google will start blinking with Gemini and all that and say, I will give you an answer, blah, blah. I don't go there. I stay with Google. Google still today has to generate all its indexed answers to your question, to your search query.
That is more safer.
Those are the real ones. That is what you and I and everybody else has been using. I saw that advocate 𝐿𝐿 Maniar said that same thing, that Google gives citations which do not exist. But Google did give you citations which exist before AI. So you have to go back to that kind of search. Don't fall into the trap of Google sending you down the rabbit hole of going back into Gemini and all that. Then you might as well go to Gemini, right? Don't do that. So stay with Google, stay with the search, go into the actual libraries. So go into third-party reliable libraries and look for the citations, right? Like, I don't know where the citations are. I mean, are they in a law court library or are they in classical archives?
Generally, they are available at the respective courts' websites. That is the most authentic source.
So if you are in a hurry, just go there. If you need to cross-check across.
It's not easy. It's not easy.
Yeah. Thank you.
What?
That is true. That is true.
Oh, wow. 700 pages. Very good. Good.
Oh, I already had.
How you got it? I need one also for me.
Okay. Is there any other question, ma'am?
Let me check now. I think no, we don't have any question. But yes, advocate 𝐿𝐿 Maniar, she agree with Dr. Chandra's. Google also gives citation which do not exist, mostly due to AI. So I think we are done with the question and answer round. And before we finish, I just wanted to inform everybody that Mr. Kaustav Ghosh is one of the panelists for the upcoming World's Lawyer Forum 2026 in Singapore, which is going to happen on May 16 and 18th. Sorry, which is going to happen on 18th and 19th. And in case if anyone of you is interested to meet Mr. Kaustav Ghosh, do register for the event and get a chance to meet with Mr. Kaustav Ghosh and have a more detailed discussion around AI and the law. Thank you once again, Mr. Kaustav, for sharing your valuable insight on such an important topic. And thank you, audience, for your participation and engagement. We really hope this provided you with a clear understanding of the legal, compliance, and the ethical dimension of AI. So stay connected with World's Lawyer Forum for insightful session. Have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody, for
Thank
being
you.
here.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you, Kaustav.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thank you.